Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your ever-loving host, Shorty, and today an extra bonus Saturday review because there was just a few too many to get. In fact, there's still a couple I wouldn't mind taking a shot at. I will say the Gotham City Monsters one was another anthology. I'd like to review it, but you know anthologies are painted in 5 minutes. So instead, we're doing the last session from Mad Cave Studios. Mad Cave is a company I occasionally delve into. As far as the indie ones I pay attention to, they're not high on my list, but they're on it. And a lot of the time it comes down to their art style has been a reason why I don't particularly stay with it. There's no one particular artist they work with that turns me off, but it's just like an overall thing. Every once in a while it will be great. This is a situation where it is great for what it's doing, which means it's quite simple artwork, because for an awful lot of time when you're talking about role-playing, which is what this is, it's tabletop role-playing, you're dealing with a bunch of people sat around a table and you don't necessarily need really over-the-top detailed artwork for that kind of thing. So they've leaned into that and gone for a much more simplistic line, and it works really effectively. It means they can spend their time doing facial expressions, stuff paying attention to costuming and things like that works really effectively. And it starts with people just sat in a classroom. I think it's either going to be seniors at high school or juniors at college in America. I'm not familiar with the American school system, so I do apologize if I've got that wrong to the creators if they watch this. But it feels like it's that kind of era, and then it cuts to basically 4 years later, kind of. And people have kind of gone on with their studies or moved on to other things, and the group still gets together, and there's references to the meeting online, so I'm guessing there's still being that kind of thing during a pandemic, which I will certainly attest to. But they're getting together because this is their chance to actually finish the adventure campaign they started years ago. It's a nice little touch. It doesn't feel like it's doing anything really out of the ordinary, though. My own role-playing thing is a bit different. I started when I was a teenager. I still role-play now, 43 years old, and a lot of the people I role-play with now, I'm friends with from back then. But I know my experience isn't everyone's, and it's kind of nice to see that there are different stories you can tell within that. The kind of crux that they're going for on this one, as well as it being the last session, is that the GM has a new person in their life. And that could cause some friction. And it does a little bit, but I like the fact that it's handled very realistically. As somebody who's been, again, role-playing is the thing I do. If you're in a long-term group and a new person joins, even if the group is made up of some of the nicest people in the world, there's always a little bit of wariness about a new person coming in, simply because there's no wrong way to role-play, but there are ways that a group of people who've been doing it for a very long time will fall to habit of doing similarly. And somebody else coming in may have a different idea about what they want to get out of role-playing, and it could cause, a little bit of pushback. So it's handled that way. Wariness without being dismissive, and I think it's really quite nice. And that dismissive thing is very obvious because this is an LGBTQIA plus story as well. This classroom they're meeting in is a gender sexuality alliance, but weirdly after that they don't push any big deal with it. They make sure to include everyone's pronouns, but I think I'd have to go back and double check and reread it. I don't think it ever comes up again, but it's there, right, front and center, absolutely no way you can ignore it. This is something that they're going to be talking about, and I really appreciate that. The rest of the story kind of then is the fantasy world, and when they do this jump, it stops being a backwards and forwards. I've seen a few role-playing comic books where they have done this kind of way, where it's either been all about the fantasy world, or it's been people around the table jumping backwards and forwards from how they deal with the art style and things like that. This one is fully embraces the fact that once the game starts, they're in a fantasy world now. They cut away any chance of there being any out-of-character interactions or any real-world distractions. Instead, it just becomes a fantasy comic. It still has some of the tropes that you'd expect from role-playing kind of things, of people maybe making some unusual decisions, especially when you've got a new person in a group and the group's used to doing it in a certain way. It is an odd little thing, but the character that comes in is a level 18 character, although not if you believe the variant cover, which says she's level 17. But she still seems to be vaguely new to role-playing. And this is handled in interesting ways. It's basically an expectation of the group knowing how things should work and her coming with ideas that work differently but are still effective. They then do a thing right at the end, which is, it's an odd thing, but it comes down to a dice roll for a touch attack kind of thing. And this is when you drop back to the real world just for a little bit to explain a little bit how the rules work. And it's a D20 dice roll. And then it cuts away with oh my God, everyone's staring at the die on a table. The thing is, because I'm a role player, I actually have my dice bag behind the counter at work. So I usually go straight from work to role-playing sessions. So I got a D20 out, and for people who don't know, pretty much all D20s are arranged the same kind of way, number-wise. And you can just basically turn it around until you see exactly which numbers they've shown, which doesn't show the top digit on the die, but you can just work it out. It looks like it's going to be a 4. So, I mean, I don't know if they've deliberately done this, and we're going to come back next week and be like, she's totally failed. Or it's a 4. Mind you, she's really good, so she's passed. We don't particularly know. But I felt like that was a nice little touch that they'd done it, and the dice actually made sense, but the dice result could have been really bad. Overall, I think because this is so heavily tied into role playing, like really, really heavily, the big question we've got with these kind of comic books is, can a layperson, someone who doesn't know about the hobby, pick it up and enjoy it? And if you'd asked me this 5-6 years ago, I'd have been like, well, probably not actually. But things like Critical Role and various other TV shows which are embracing role playing and the kind of geek hobbies is far more mainstream, means more and more comic book people are well aware of role playing. And I think even if they never picked up a dice themselves, they could know enough about the world to enjoy this, because the characters are good, they're well written, they're well drawn, and the story comes together quite nicely. Certainly one that I'd recommend to role players. And I'd say I think I'd give people a chance if they've never role played in their entire life just to try out something new. That's it for me. In fact, that's it for the week. I'll be back on Tuesday. Till then, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.